Well, we've been saying that honor is a specific mindset. It's a particular way that we look at other people, and it's a way that we treat other people. And we've said that it's also a very powerful tool in the hands of God as we submit our attitudes and our responses to other people to Him. We said that honor is not just being nice. It's not failing to confront people when there is something that needs to be confronted. But it's a confrontation when that's necessary that comes from God's heart, and it has the other person's best interests at heart, rather than just, well, I'm going to straighten you out, or I'm going to get you off my back, or I'm going to make you shape up. So I didn't realize just how powerful a tool that was in my own healing journey until I had a teaching assignment one time where I was in a junior high class with a group of students who were absolutely incorrigible. It was the first day of school the entire year. It never settled down. Oh, there would be a minor lull here and there, but it was a class who was caught up in a conflict within the community. The parents of about a third of my students were on one side of the conflict, and the other parents were on the other side of the conflict. And they figured that they didn't have to do anything I said, because if they caused enough trouble at school, they could get rid of me, and their parents would roundly cheer them. I had also replaced the favorite teacher in the whole school, and so that was another strike against me. And I went to school every day of that year faced with intense, unrelenting dishonor. And right from the beginning, the Lord began to put in my heart that sense of treating them with respect, no matter how they treated me. It didn't mean just being nice to them. I tried being nice to them. They chewed me up and spit me out in little pieces. I tried being mean to them, and I found myself exhausted at the end of the day. So when God came along with the new plan, I was ready for it. And into this grueling year, God did amazing things. There was one situation where I had decided to do a project that would kind of get them thinking about the way they talk to each other. And so I had a piece of poster board, butcher paper up, on which I had an outline of a figure. And we did an exercise where they were to just sort of brainstorm all of the put-downs that they were constantly saying to each other. It took them about 10 seconds flat to fill up the figure. And then the next part of it was to pass out paper on which I had made some footprints, and they were to cut out the footprints, write on that some kind of a put up, and that we would put that on the figure as a graphic representation of stamping out killer statements. It was a great idea. It was really wonderful. When we got to the point about some put-ups, what could we say that would be encouraging to people? They couldn't think of anything. It took forever to think of even one nice thing to say. So sometime later then, they had broken into groups, and they were to cut out one of the footprints, write something on it, bring it up, and we'd put it on the board. Well, I noticed one group over in the corner, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to mix in that right now. So everybody else is bringing up their stuff. We're putting them up there. And finally I'm saying, okay, guys, we gotta get this going. So they brought some comments, which were actually fairly decent comments. I did notice at the bottom of each one of the footprints there were some initials. And the initials were M, F, F, Y, M, H. And I thought, I wonder what that is. And, but I wasn't going to go there. So we put them up. As I collected their papers, I noticed that on the tops of their papers were the same initials. After they had left for the day, I noticed that on the desks of this group, there were those same initials. And one of the boys that were staying after school came over to me and said, "You know what those initials stand for?" I said, "What do they stand for?" in my best teacherly fashion, of course. Well, he said, it's not very nice. He said, The M and the H stand for Mrs. Hendricks. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what the other two letters stand for. And I am absolutely furious. I am enraged. I dismissed the boy with as much composure as I could. And I went over to talk to the principal about what I had found. And she was ready to just let him have it right then, expel him from school. And I said, well, I know these people, and I imagine they've got something else figured out that they'll say, oh, no, it doesn't mean that, it means this. And so let's just give them a little bit more rope and see if they'll hang themselves. So the next morning, I had made copies of all their papers, and we went in with a camera, and we were taking pictures of their desks. And by this time, the phone is rung. The kids are all outside the room looking in. What's she doing? What are they doing? And when we got through taking the pictures, why, I just opened the door and let them in casually without any comment. And there's all this, you could just feel the energy in the room. What you going to do? And I just calmly started class. I knew that at that point I was still too angry to confront them. At recess, I was still too angry. But I had written some initials of my own on their papers when I handed them back. I wrote M-Y-T-L-B-Y. And they're looking at that, they're saying, what are these initials? What does this mean? And one of the girls said to me, what do these initials mean, Mrs. Hendricks? And I said, what do your initials mean? And they said, oh, it's nothing. It's just an exclusive girls' club. And so I figured at recess was still not the time to confront this because I was still too furious. It was pulling in all of this is just like it was when I was in junior high. They still don't like me. They're still da-da-da-da-da. By noon, the Lord had begun to get hold of my heart. And I felt calm enough to go ahead and confront the situation. It was a rainy day. Recess was in the gym. And so I went to the gym and began to pull the girls out one by one. The first girl came out, and she was just very defiant. And I said, you want to tell me what the initials stand for? She says, nothing. It just means fine. You mean hen. And then I said, aha, I've got this girl. She was a very talented in English. And she had made the mistake of putting punctuation in her initials. And she put the punctuation between the Y and the M instead of between the F and the Y. And so I said to her, well, you know, if it had really meant that, you would have put the comma after the fine rather than after the Y. And she just stood there for a minute with just a hard look on her face. And then I said, I want you to know that I know what the initials stand for. Make no mistake about it, I know exactly what they stand for. And I want you to know that I'm not putting up with it anymore. I've been nice, Mr. Nice Guy for this long, hoping that you would come to the conclusion that I'm really here to stay and we can get on with school. But now, I want you to know that this is not going to happen again. And if you put initials on anything, anywhere in the school, I will take you before the board and have you suspended. And if you do it again, I'll take you before the board again and have you suspended again. And if you do it again, I'll have you expelled from school. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Yes. So off she goes to the office to wait. I bring out the second girl. We go through the same sort of thing, but this time this girl starts crying. Well, she didn't really want to go through with it, but if she didn't, she wouldn't have any friends. She was really, really sorry about it. And as she broke down, I took her kind of off to the side around the corner where she wouldn't be quite so visible if someone came down the hall. And just at that moment, as she's bursting into tears that she wouldn't have any friends, a couple of girls came around the corner. And I sort of stepped in front to shield her, and I said, yes, what do you want? And they said, well, we came to you about that initial stuff. And I said, okay, so what about it? They said, well, we're really sorry. We didn't want to do that, but we thought we wouldn't have any friends if we didn't go along with it. And so we did it, and we're really sorry. And so I stepped back and said, ta-da, did you hear that? And so they all pledged eternal friendship, and they'd never, ever do anything bad again. So for about a week, things were a little bit more calm. But by Christmas time, things had gotten really quite out of hand again. But we were to do a Christmas program. Now this was back in the days when you could still do a Christmas program. So we were practicing some Christmas carols. And I had one boy in my class who really never engaged in anything in the class, neither the mischief nor the good stuff. He was just kind of always in a place by himself. And as we were getting this Christmas program ready, he came up to me and he said, do you need somebody to direct the choir? Are you offering to direct the choir? That was wonderful, because I was having a hard time doing the piano and the choir at the same time. So I said, yeah, that'd be great. I'll teach you some rudiments of the marking the times. That would be great. So we got ready, and I presented him to the class, and the class was absolutely ruthless. They just ripped him up and laughed and catcalled, and to the point where this boy, he's a junior high boy, and he left in tears. And I was furious. Just as I was about ready to really slam into the kids, two of these girls from the group went after him. They went after him, got him, brought him back, and you know, basically told the other kids, okay, now cool it. And wow, something is happening here. And so I was feeling like, okay, well, maybe we're getting somewhere after all. And and he's up there, he's getting ready, and I'm at the piano, and we're ready to go, and this little girl in the front row goes, and I came unglued. They had never seen me really furious before, and it was like, whoa, I think we went too far this time. I screamed at that little girl, and I said, get over there, and no, don't even sit in the chair. I don't even want to see you. Get out of this room. Go back to the classroom. I sent her back to spend the rest of the hour with my aide, and I was almost out of control. I was so furious. She had left the room. I turned back to the choir, and I said, now open your books to Joy to the World. We somehow got through that rehearsal, and that night at home, I was just devastated. I said, Lord, everything that I've done this whole semester so far to try to build into them that sense of that I'm going to go after your behavior, I'm going to develop whatever power I need to deal with your behavior, but your worth is never in question in my eyes. And in one fell swoop, I've blown it. And now what am I going to do? And he said, well, you could apologize. I said, apologize? You've got to be kidding. They have been looking for the whole semester for something to kill me over. This would be it. They would chew me up and spit me out in little pieces. I would never live it down. No way. And he said, oh, okay. I said, but what am I going to do? But Lord, and I began to just grieve in my spirit that I had brought dishonor on the name of the Lord by my behavior, and that I would not put up with that from them, and I could not demand that they put up with it from me. I wrestled with it all night, and I kept asking the Lord, what can I do? And the only thing he would ever say to me is, well, you could apologize. So the next morning, I got to school, and I'm still wrestling with this. But when the kids came in, I just stood up in front of them, and I said, you know, I really blew it yesterday. I said, my issue with Sally is still there. I will not put up with that behavior. But I didn't have to throw you to the ground and stomp on you to get that message across. One of the boys in the back row who never paid attention to anything said, did you really throw her to the ground and stomp on her? he thought the event of the year had taken place and he missed it. I said, well, I didn't literally throw her to the ground and stomp on her, but I bet she felt stomped on, didn't you? And she goes, and I said, I just want you to know that was out of line, and you don't ever have to expect that kind of behavior from me. I was wrong, and I want to ask you to forgive me. Now, during the semester up until this time, when their behavior came to a certain level of out of bounds, we had an arrangement where I would send them to the principal, and they would wait out until the next break time, and then I would deal with their misbehavior. Or if the principal got to it first and she dealt with them and sent them back to the room, when they came back to the room, they had to look me in the eye and apologize, specifically naming what they had done. And then I would say to them, I forgive you. And they would, try to slip into the room, and I'd say, did you have permission to come back here? Yes. Who sent you back here? Well, the principal sent me back. And did he give you some instructions before you came back? Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What was that you said? I'm sorry. Who are you talking to? I'm talking to you. Oh, well, would you please look at my eyes so I can tell what you're saying? And they had to look me in the eye and say, I am sorry for, and name the behavior. And then I would say to them, I forgive you. And I did that for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then I said to them, I want you to know that when I tell you I forgive you, that I'm sending you a very specific message. A lot of times we think the word forgive is just some kind of religious word you hear it in church and it doesn't have any place in school. But in reality, the word to forgive means to cut loose, to set free. And so when I say to you, I forgive you, what I'm saying is that you are set free of your misdeed. And tonight, when I'm correcting your papers, you see, I'm going to be free also to judge your work according to its merit, rather than and marking you down because I'm mad at what you did at school. So it's a protection for both of us. So that day, when I said to them, I want to ask you to forgive me, they had some basis on there to make a decision. And there was just this just almost a holy quiet in the classroom. Nobody said, oh yeah, we forgive you. But the thing that was so incredible about it was that they never, ever, ever mentioned it again. They never threw it up to me. Even in their most angry moments, they threw everything else I'd ever done, which was not wrong, but they were always looking for things to accuse me. But the one thing that they could have thrown up to me the whole rest of the year, they never again mentioned. It wasn't until the last day of school that I realized that there were really some very powerful and eternal things that had taken place in that year. It was actually the third from the last day of school, and I wanted to let them know from my own mouth that I wasn't coming back the following year, not because they had run me out of town, and that I just wanted to just have a little time to sit down with them. I had one boy in my class who had a wonderful gift of humor. There were a few times when he used that gift of humor to grab the attention of the class and take it in the same direction I was going. And when that happened, it was a wonderful help and blessing. Most of the time, however, he used it to grab the class and take them off in a different direction. So this particular day, he was in rare form, and he had all of us just in gales of laughter as we were preparing for the time of being in a circle and just spending some time together. And then I began to notice that it was more than just having a good time, that he was clearly in control of the class, and he was clearly determined not to relinquish that control. And so I went through my steps. First step is an eye-to-eye verbal warning. I need to have some quiet here now. We need to get on. The second step is, would you move your chair back just about 3 feet? That you can still talk, but it puts you out of contact with those who are appreciating your antics. And so a little bit of separation was the second step. Third step was out of the room. But since it was the next day, the 8th grade skip trip, if he were out of the room that day, he would not go on the skip trip the next day. So it was kind of like 1, 2, 2 1/4, 2 3/8, kind of thing. I just didn't want to take that final step, but it was clear he was not going to relinquish control. And so finally I said, the other teacher that was in the room with me, would you escort him to the office, please? And then, quite unplanned, I found myself going around the class. There were 30-some kids in the class. I would have never planned such a thing because I wouldn't have dreamed that they would have sat still for that long. But I found myself going around and one by one speaking into each child the strengths I had seen in them in that year, and just really conferring a blessing upon them. And I came around to the space where Jamie had been sitting, and you know, Jamie's not sitting there, so I skipped and went over to the next kid. And as I started the blessing, several of them said to me, "What about Jamie?" And then I understood that, see, that's my final exam. Do you have anything good to say about Jamie now that you've kicked him out of class and you're not going to let him go on the 8th grade field trip, skip trip? And so I went back and I said, "This is what I have to say to Jamie. And I will tell him when I see him, and you tell him also. But this is what I have to say to him. Jamie, you have a wonderful, wonderful gift of humor. You are a great leader, and you have a talent there for that. And when you have used that gift to take the class in the same direction I'm going during the year, it's been a tremendous help and blessing. And I appreciate that. In those times when you have gone in a different direction and I've had to deal with you, I want you to know that your worth in my eyes is never in question. I'm dealing only with your behavior. And I'm doing that because I know that if your behavior is not brought into balance, that all of the wonderful gifts you have to offer will be wasted, and you're too valuable to waste." And then I went on. They sat there quietly. It was over an hour because I didn't rush. And actually we weren't quite through when the recess bell rang. And so they went out for recess and they came back. And in the meantime, I'd gone over and talked to Jamie, and Jamie had settled down and wanted to come back. And so I brought him back in. And so then I gave him his blessing in front of the class. And we went ahead and finished it. The next day, he didn't go on the skip trip. The final day, he came to class or came to school just to pick up his report card. His mom brought him, and we happened to meet in the parking lot. And I looked at him and I said, "Jamie, I want you to know we really missed you yesterday. It broke my heart to send you away. But I want you to know again that your worth is not in question, and you're too valuable to waste." He just gave me a grin, and with a wave of his hand, he was gone. But I know that eternity was planted in the hearts of those kids. The other thing that was planted was that I went into that classroom not really quite confident in my ability as a teacher anyway, but I had been trained as a high school teacher, and I'd spent the previous few years teaching at the university level, and so I wasn't even sure that even if I were a good teacher by some accident that I could teach junior high kids. And in the midst of intense dishonor, I had school board members who would walk into my room with a clipboard in hand, sit there for several hours taking notes all the time they were gone, all the time they were there, and then walk out and leave without ever saying a word to me. And there was just all of this stuff going on. And in the midst of that, God did an incredible work of healing in me. I left that school having, in one sense, the worst year you could imagine, confident that I really could teach and that I had been called to be a teacher. There was absolutely nothing that I could point to and say, "See, that's the evidence." Absolutely nothing. It was the first day of school the whole year. But God had done something in my heart because I had to choose daily, hourly, minutely to return honor for dishonor. And in the process, it just freed up God to totally disentangle me from any power they would have to reach inside and comment about my person. It was amazing. So honor is not just being nice. It's not failing to confront. It's not pretending. It's not pasting a smile on your face when you just wish you could punch him out. But it is, as we said, partnering together with God to bring about the highest good in another person. And it's all of the events and circumstances of our lives in which we have the opportunity to choose to return dishonor for dishonor, that God most powerfully can work not only in our own healing, but in the healing of those around us. And so may God bless us to choose to give the gift of honor, joyously, lavishly, generously. And in the process, may we reap the benefits of God's grace flowing through us.